Chapter 1. A Romance for Consuelo de Magdalena. She never ceased to amaze her father with her resourcefulness and determination when she had set her mind on something. In her entire life, Consuelo was this way, except in love and marriage. It was, as she told herself, that way for most princesses who were smart, self-confident, but in the way of romance, lonely. On the other hand, she had the feeling that she never ceased to irritate her stepmother by her inability to attract a husband and eventually leave the estate to her father and her stepmother. Consuelo was of marriageable age and suitability, but not of marrying luck. Her self-confidence and innate resilience intimidated most would-be suitors, often causing them to stammer incoherently or actually begin looking for an escape route. So her dreams of romance, love, and passion drifted past her heart like a leaf in a stream, swirling this way and that aimlessly without any clear destination ahead. To compensate for her lack of the romantic side of life, she focused on times when love and romance abounded. France, Italy, and Spain were her favorite romantic destinations in mind, while Russia and Germany were her least favorite, purely for the fact that they had no romance at all. She contemplated that the further north a pair of bodies moved together, the less romance existed in their lives. Russia and Germany happened to be a pair of countries that satisfied her theory completely. She entered into this theoretical discussion on more than one occasion with her father and stepmother. She also formed an opinion on the latter individual. Her stepmother must be from both northern countries, due to her cold and heartless demeanor. In the sun-filled library of her father's estate, while perusing through a manuscript on Italian romances, she came across a story that captured her imagination entirely. A man named a sapphire after his wife, the Sapphire of Elenora. A large, deep blue sapphire said to be priceless. Priceless, she realized, depended greatly on the current owners, and not the future buyers. But what caught Consuelo's attention was the other name by which the stone was called, the blue aphrodisia. Why call a stone that? What could lead people to associate lust, passion, and yearning with a sapphire? Consuelo was immediately intrigued, eager to know more about this story of the ultimate romance encapsulated within the blueness of a gemstone. During the long years after her mother died, Consuelo had to fashion her views of what feminine beauty was. Her father was attentive to her, but could not advise her on matters of beauty, grace, or proper etiquette. There were very few female visitors to the estate, and those who did visit were accompanied by their husbands. Among the sparse guests, none could be considered lovely, radiant, or adventurous. The women who were employed by her father had little idea of fashion, femininity, and matters that were important to young ladies. These women were exactly that, women, but not ladies. Fashion had as much relevance to these females as peacock feathers did to a hound. Consuelo formed her views of what she should become from what she read, examined, and imagined. The results were spectacular. With no outside guidance, she transformed herself into a breathtaking 16th-century goddess. She ordered seamstresses to make her fashion ideas a reality. She had no idea of what the current style for young ladies was, but she had her imagination and a keen sense of fashion. She didn't care for the large hooped affairs that could hide an entire family of cats, nor did she like the matronly gray and white dresses that she considered only suitable to wear while peeling potatoes. What she came up with was a series of sleek dresses that accentuated her feminine form beyond that which her father approved, but which certain suitors would certainly approve. She preferred jewel-toned purples and deep blues trimmed with black or silver. These were, she decided, most flattering to her natural appearance and shape. Consuelo knew that her skin color was darker than most girls in the region, and lighter than many servants she had seen. Her raven black hair was long and as sleek as her dresses. She let her hair grow until it reached her lower back, and then trimmed it straight across. She loved her hair. She loved her skin tone. She loved her shape. But what Consuelo loved the most about herself were her dark eyes. Her eyes were deep blue, nearing the boundary of being black. The pupils were undetectable from the irises. She loved her eyes. She had never met anyone who had eyes like hers, deep blue, as if the ocean's unfathomable depths reflected directly in them. She had learned that the young men who came to her with very high opinions of themselves quickly fell prey to the steady gaze of her dark eyes, and soon lost their previous lofty attitudes. Most often these same young men left when they knew their strong will had been broken, and that they would never be able to approach her again. The less lofty young men would lose their thoughts and often begin rambling on matters of no relevance to them. Soon they would leave as well. Consuelo wasn't taller than other girls of her age, nor was she shorter, but she had confidence in the way she carried herself. She stood as though she was a goddess amongst mortals, not with haughty arrogance, but strong confidence in herself and her abilities. Self-assurance infused her every gesture and movement. Her very being radiated refinement, intelligence, and confidence. She was not born into aristocracy, but she displayed the grace and natural elegance of the highest-bred girls in the court. Her stepmother was the antithesis of the person into which Consuelo had shaped herself. She was brusque, ill-tempered, and most obliviously from the north, as she was cold-hearted towards Consuelo and her father. Her dresses covered her from chin to ankles, and, like her personality, were unwavering, cold, and most unflattering. Consuelo often conducted conversations with her stepmother, albeit only to her alone. She would frequently hold an internal dialogue, asking, "Is it true that people from your country are born without hearts or souls?" "Oh, no, please don't take offense. I am not trying to be insulting, my dearest and hopefully last stepmother, and most wicked and foul wife of my beloved father. I am merely trying to understand, within my limited capacity of youthful comprehension, if you are more human than those great slinking wolves of the north of which we hear so much. Father has told me that those great beasts can devour a man flesh, bone, heart, and soul." She would continue, "Now, please, please, don't get upset at my words." She would then speak apologetically. "My most respected and earnest father told me that I must always speak the truth, even if the pain is unbearable. Tell me, dearest stepmother, is the pain unbearable?" Her conversations always made her happy, since she was always the victor at the end of it. "I don't think you have ever defeated me in our lovely discussions, dearest black-hearted wife of my dearest white-hearted father." These discussions in her mind seemed to strengthen her and increase her desire to be both honorable and dangerous. But today she had something else on her mind, the blue aphrodisia. She spoke the name aloud. The blue aphrodisia. Just the name alone filled her with a yearning she didn't fully comprehend. Her heart began to pulse harder, and a small catch formed in her throat from the mere thought of the name. What kind of gem could deserve that name? She asked herself. Her curiosity finally got the best of her. She decided to swallow her repugnance for her stepmother and ask her about the stone. "May I ask you a question, stepmother?" Consuelo politely asked as she crossed the great sitting room. Somewhat taken aback by Consuelo's inquiry, she answered in an artificially sweet tone, "Of course, my dearest Consuelo." Consuelo moved closer to her stepmother, closer than she had been in a very long time, and began, "I have heard of a stone. a sapphire to be exact, that is called the Sapphire of Elenora. But I have heard it by another name as well, the blue aphrodisia. Have you ever heard of it?" Her stepmother's eyes twinkled, and the corners of her lips twitched into a fleeting smile. Consuelo had seen her stepmother smile before, but she had never seen this way of smiling. She saw a twinkling and a twitch of what could only be an intimate knowledge of the subject. "Yes, I have heard of the stone," she replied, but in a way that lured Consuelo into the need to ask more. Consuelo hurried to the chair nearest to her stepmother and asked eagerly, "Can you tell me about it?" "What is it you wish to know?" she once again replied, but in a gentler tone than Consuelo had ever heard her speak. Her posture in the chair shifted into what Consuelo thought was that of a confidant preparing to reveal a deeply kept secret. "Please tell me why it is called the blue aphrodisia?" Consuelo inquired. To Consuelo's amazement, her wolfish, black-hearted, soulless northern stepmother silently and slowly turned her head towards the window, gazed out for a long moment, and returned to look at Consuelo. Her eyes were pooled with tears that had made delicate pathways down her blushing cheeks. As she turned back, it almost seemed to Consuelo that her stepmother's poise had increased. Her shoulders and her neck and back became regal in form. She was transforming before her very eyes. Her brusque stature changed into a more genteel form, still brusque, but showing warmth that Consuelo had never seen before. "Mother, what's wrong?" Consuelo said anxiously. Her stepmother convulsed in a shudder of pure emotion. You called me mother." "Oh, forgive me, stepmother," Consuelo replied, with her eyes fixed on the floor. "No, my child, never say forgive me for such a beautiful gift as being called mother," was her reply. "I have waited and waited for the moment when you would accept me as your mother. I believed you had no feelings toward me other than that of someone who was determined to steal away your father. Over the years I believed it more and more, until this moment. Do you know how many nights I pleaded your father to grant me a divorce and send me away because of your unhappiness? Your father said that someday Consuelo will come to you, and everything will change." "My father said that," Consuelo said, fighting back the tears. "Yes, he promised me you would. He promised me by the heart that beats in both of us that you would." Once again tears filled the stepmother's eyes. Then, in a gesture that had never occurred on that estate, Consuelo stood from her chair, stepped forward, and leaned forward to hug her stepmother. "My child, I want you to be happy. I want you to live your dreams and your reality. I want to be your natural mother, and not a slinking northern wolf." At last she gave a wry smile, and with a tilt of her head, she told her, "You occasionally talk in your sleep, and we occasionally listen to you." Consuelo lowered her head in shame and didn't speak. "Consuelo, you can call me Elenora, just like the sapphire's namesake." Consuelo looked up sharply in startled amazement and said, "What?" "I said," Elenora paused, "you can call me Elenora." "I never knew your name was that," Consuelo said in disbelief. "Although I prefer that you called me mother and not by my first name, I will respond to either," Elenora said. Consuelo replied, "Elenora, why was it that when I asked about the sapphire you cried?" inquired the stepdaughter. "What is the sapphire to you?" With a slight burst of laughter, Elenora stood and hugged Consuelo tightly. "Oh, my daughter, it means much more to me than you or your father can ever imagine," replied Elenora. Please tell me. Please, Mother, please tell me," begged Consuelo. Elenora nodded in agreement and replied, "I will tell you, but only when your father is also present. He needs to hear this story, too." She continued, "This evening after dinner I will tell you both." Elenora paused and asked inquisitively, "My dear Consuelo, will you join us for dinner tonight?" "Yes!" was all she said, before whirling away and running up the grand staircase to her room. Elenora smiled to the empty room as she sat back down in her chair and gazed out the window as the tears once again formed in her eyes.